All right, let's bring her in. You know her as BachelorData on Instagram. She's a multi-time guest on this show. It is Suzana Somers. Suzana, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me back.
This is the first time you're on video, and I didn't want to say anything before I brought you on, but I had like my fingers crossed, and I didn't want to tell you what to wear. I was just hoping we'd get a pink top on this video, and there it is, the pink hoodie. This is my favorite.
I am a mess today. I was so not prepared for them to drop Grant's Women yesterday, and I had so much work planned this week, and I had to drop everything yesterday. And then you messaged me, you're like, let's talk all the data tomorrow on the podcast. And I was like, yeah, definitely. And then I definitely didn't have enough time to get ready.
No, it's all right. I just wanted the pink. I wanted the pink top. I wanted this. That is like your signature. It's like your signature thing, right? Like if you didn't wear pink in a video, it'd be like, did she not do laundry this week?
Well, now I can't. Now I can't this season because Joey's Women, the photos that they use, the backdrop is like this dark reddish brown. And that's not going to go with pink. So I have to change my entire color palette this season, which we're going to file this under the first world problems. It's going to push me on the color palette side. I'm going to learn some new color palettes. But
well, I don't know how it works. Can you take each of their Bachelor bio photos and change out their background?
Absolutely. And actually, one of the big problems I have that I don't think I've ever ranted about this, and I've never heard anyone rant about it, is the fact that for this franchise, I have such a big peep about this. For this franchise, the cast photos that they release, they don't release the same like crop ratio for each contestant. So some contestants, we get the full body image, and then other ones we get shoulders up. So what I end up having to do on a lot of photos, like yesterday's, after the cast drop, a few of the women, I have to use like Canva's AI expand feature to make the image longer so that it'll fit and their face won't like blow up in the ratio that I'm using in the post. But yeah, no, there are ways on Canva, you can remove the background and I pull those photos, but it's tricky to make it look good. And then, I mean, everybody knows it's a red background, so I got to run with it because that's what sticks in people's heads. But we're filing this under the first world problems, and it's just going to push me on the data visualization side. So,
well, with the cast being released yesterday's first, look, back in September when they released the quote unquote potential 27 women for Grant's season, you and I collab and we put it all together. You have it up on your Instagram. I put it on my Instagram stories and in my highlights of finding these women's first and last names and their Instagram accounts. And we had everybody that day. So it's been out there for 3.5 months, but there's three
one
different
we never got.
Yeah. Ella, right?
Yeah.
So for me, and I think for a lot of people, there's like 3 different start times of The Bachelor. There is back in September when the women are first released, people will chime in. Oh, I like her. Oh, and I know her, whatever. Or, oh, she bullied me. She took my lunch money back, 12 years ago. It's like, and then they wanted her canceled. So then there's that. And then there's yesterday, which is, granted, even though it's out there and you put it out there and She's All Batch puts it out there and talks about it and Game of Roses will, it's still a subsection of the internet that talks about it. And then yesterday is like, okay, now the public is now introduced to the women because they are officially out there and they're all posting on their Instagrams. And then there's premiere night where it's like, okay, now I get to actually see them with my own three eyes, my own 2 eyes. And so it's just a weird dynamic because I see it every year. I get stuff sent to me back in September. I had some stuff sent to me yesterday, and I'll have some stuff come to me on Monday the 27th. It's so weird how people consume this show now and how different levels it comes in at.
Yeah, I do feel like this like preseason buzz period, it's been really dead this season. And especially on the spoiler side of things, I keep an eye on spoilers everywhere, obviously your page, but I also, I try to keep an eye on the spoiler Reddit discussion threads, and it's been dead all season. And I'm worried. I told you ahead of time, I'm going to try to not be pessimistic in this podcast, but I am a bit worried of how dead it's been this season. It was pretty dead between Charity season and Joey's, but not this quiet. That I'm hoping It gets better. And we saw that with Joey's season. Joey's season was like a slow start, and it really picked up thanks to TikTok and social media. So I'm reserving hope.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, because let's face it, the announcement of Grant was so poorly done.
Poorly.
It was the worst. It's not only the worst, it's probably the least marketable announcement they ever had. It was like he was eliminated on Jen's season, and then it went up on Instagram that night. You didn't have him on Kimmel. You didn't have him on GMA. He was a 5th place finisher. It didn't resonate. We never saw interviews with him right away. It just wasn't done correctly. And, they probably have their reasons, probably ones we'll never at least publicly know about, or some stuff privately, but it's just the buzz around it just wasn't great. And he, like you said, you could be outside the top 4. It doesn't happen often, but we know it does happen on occasion. But just the way they launched him as their Bachelor was just so poorly done. And that's got to contribute to just this malaise in the off season.
It's giving like last minute choice, and who knows why, I'm sure that there are internal reasons why, but it's kind of like Jen, right? Like if Jen had, and we know now, Jen found out after the finale that she was going to be on Dancing with the Stars. If that had been planned before the finale, literally hours before the finale, they would have used that as a hero storyline. She's going to come out on top of Devin, this horrible man, which ended up getting worse in the weeks following. But they could have used that as a plot line, right? To build up that character storyline. Everything we watch on TV, everything is a storyline, regardless if it's reality TV or not. So I'm not saying this is like it's fake, but we have to be intentional about how we build those stories to keep the audience engaged. With Grant, they didn't show him last season. So I think a lot of people are just like, why are we rooting for him? And instead, if they had chosen, like, again, if they were trying to go for, we want diversity and that's why we chose Grant, why didn't they show us like that much of his storyline throughout the season, the way that we saw like Jonathan or other people of color on Jen's season? It felt very last minute. And like, why wouldn't you invest time building up that storyline to go off of Joey's momentum and Jen's momentum with Dancing with the Stars and everything to then have another successful season? Like you have to, like, it's business. Why wouldn't they do that?
And we'll get to it in a little bit later on in this talk in regards to Grant's season in terms of the length of it. We haven't seen a Bachelor season this short since probably, I'm talking early 2000s, if I had to guess, just in amount of episodes that he's looking to get. But let's talk about this launch yesterday. And since you dive into the numbers and you're all into how this works with the women and followers and stuff like that, any numbers jump out to you in the most versus the previous seasons on launch day, maybe versus just Joey's women? These women, look, we know unless you have some sort of past or you're a former pageant queen or a model, you're probably going to have a relatively low follower count just because it's probably just your friends and family that know who you are.
Or content.
Did anybody jump out this year versus this cast compared to Joey's women of last season?
So we have a few women that have some pretty decent sized followings already to begin with. So on the Instagram side of things, we have, and I'm so sorry, I haven't watched any videos on how to say these women's names. So if I mispronounce any, I'm going to get better throughout the season. It's been 24 hours that I've been thinking about these women's names. So Alicia, she has 14,000 followers on Instagram, and on TikTok, she has 24,000. We're going to talk a little bit about her TikTok presence in just a second. Bailey has 12,000, 17,000 on TikTok. I'm going in order of Instagram, TikTok. Okay. Carolina, she has 14,000. I just found her TikTok, or no, I haven't found her TikTok yet. And then I think Carolina, she's Miss USA. Which one's the one that's Miss California?
We have a Miss California this year? I don't even know.
Yes.
If I did read it, I forgot.
I've got it in here in a second. Oh no, it's Alicia. Alicia is the one that was Miss USA, or Miss California. Y'all, you got to give me some grace. I'm still learning these women. But yeah, we have a handful. Parisha, she has 11,000 on Instagram. Rebecca has 31,000. And then Zoe has 10,000. So everybody else is under that.
I believe Rebecca, she's the leader, right? Rebecca, 31. Is that the most you said?
Yep.
I believe she's a model, so that makes sense. So that means, I mean, just going off the top of my head, that's like 6 that were over 10,000 out of 25, roughly.
Yeah.
6-ish.
Yeah. Which is pretty normal. I mean, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is such a normal cast size," and I was like, "This is actually pretty normal to have people who have over 10,000 versus under 10,000." I think a lot of people forget, like Hannah Ann back on Peter's season, she had like 30,000. Maddie Pruitt had like 15,000, I think. I need to pull up those numbers before I say in concrete, but like they had his women had a lot of followers before his season started filming. Like back in September, Hannah Ann had 34,500. Maddie Pruitt had 7,000. When she came back in November, she had 11,000. We had contestants in that season that had over 100,000 followers. You know, it's not that uncommon. And people, if you've heard me on this podcast, you know I've had my little rants about it. But having people who already have a following on social media is vital for the success of this franchise. The only reason that Joey's season took off initially is because Daisy and a few other contestants were creating so much content on TikTok that it ushered in this new generation of, hey, we're here. We're also kind of cool like Love Island. You should come watch our show because we have relatable contestants that make content that you like. And then they tuned in and then they fell in love with Joey. They fell in love with Kelsey and all these other contestants. But it's actually a good thing to have a balance and have some contestants that last long enough on the season and are making viral content that get people and remind people to tune in each week.
Well, I think one thing yesterday that I brought up to you once this was all out and you put up your Instagram feed post on all the women, their Instagram handles, and then their numbers for Instagram followers and TikTok followers, was the one thing I pointed out to you was like, and I'm going to go over a mini spoiler here. I'm not going to give an exact placement of where this woman finishes, but let's just say there is a woman this year that goes pretty far. And when you put out your rankings yesterday, she was 25th out of 25 in terms of followers. She had less than 1,000 followers. And by the time I had looked at your Instagram feed post and then went back to her, she had added over 1,000, and she's certainly out of 25th place now. And I don't even know what she's at right now. I can even say it. It's Latia. And by the way, I was calling her Lydia because we don't know how these women pronounce their names, but I had found out it's Latia. She had 925 followers until yesterday. And now she's probably over 2,000, 3,000 if I had to guess.
She said 1,900.
1,900. Okay. So yeah, but she was at 925 and she was ranked 25th out of 25 on your list of women at the time you posted yesterday. But I don't think she had gone public by the time you posted, and then she did, I think, shortly thereafter. So that's obviously why these women aren't technically not allowed to go public until yesterday when ABC officially announces them as contestants, which has changed. Back in the day, you were allowed to go public the second you were eliminated from the show, but then the show realized, holy shit, we're giving away our elimination order because people are following this stuff. And if somebody had 1,000 followers and then all of a sudden they had 1,500, clearly they're not on the show anymore because we know that these women don't have their phones during the show. So, I mean, guess good on them for the show, but it usually turned into once all of filming is over, these women could go back on their Instagram. Now, filming ended for Grant's season literally the first week in November, and yet they're not allowed to go on their Instagram and go public for another 2 months, which was what, January 7th, yesterday, the date. So that's what I mean. Like, that adds to it. Why aren't you letting these women go back to your old rule of, no, maybe you don't get your phone back and can go on public once you get eliminated, but once all of filming is over, let all the women go on social media. I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, well, 2 things there. Number one, there is one contestant who violated that and posted, oh, wait, no, you said it ended the first week of November.
Yeah, around, or like end of, I think the final rose ceremony was either October, I want to say it was October 30th or October 31st. I'd have to look at it, but
so they wrapped filming early.
Yeah, they wrapped.
It's normally like the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, they wrapped definitely 2 weeks early this year.
Because I was going to say, I was looking through their TikTok accounts because I've now found 17 of their TikTok accounts between messaging them. Batchmakers helped in a few different ways. And one of them, Savannah, she posted on November 20th. And I was like, I wanted to send her a message to be like, hey, you're not supposed to post during filming, but I guess filming finished early. So I'm glad I didn't send that. But I think it is a good thing though, because I've already seen people are sleuthing being like, what are they liking on TikTok? What are they reposting? And what message is it sending? And making them wait a little bit longer to cool off with their feelings post filming. I have thoughts. I looked through their TikToks. I have thoughts on some of these contestants, and I want to know if my thoughts are correct on who the villain is based on their content over there.
Oh, so I don't follow them on TikTok. If they show up now, if they start showing up now on my For You page, I'll obviously see them, but I couldn't tell you one of these women's TikToks. But yeah, you can fill me in on what kind of content they're producing. Is it funny? Is it mean?
Yeah.
Is it, what is it?
But a few interesting things on the cast release, especially with Latia. Is that how we say it? So she gained a lot of followers, and I was seeing everywhere. Everybody's saying she's one of the most beautiful women on the cast. I think because she's not final. Are we talking spoilers? We're talking spoilers, right?
Yeah, she's the one that I said she lasts far. Let's just say she's in the final four. I mean, that's out. Actually, that's on my Instagram page. So if you don't know by now, she's in the final four and could be lasting even further than the final four. But let's just call it minimum final four for Latia.
So we saw in the first 24 hours after the cast release. So I have a list of contestants each season that gained more than 1,000 followers after the cast release. And obviously it's less these days than it used to be. But this season it was Alexi, which I think also might be because she's at the top of the list alphabetically. I was looking back season to season, and typically the first 1 to 2 women on the list gain the most followers because they're the first on every article and on every post. And then
so your name starts with an A, apply for the show because you're going to get a little bump.
And then Carolina, she gained 1,500. Juliana gained 1,100. Latia gained 1,000. And ironically, Grant only gained 960 followers. And then don't worry, I have the data on the leads that we're going to talk about too. So if we look back at other seasons, Jen, this wasn't 24 hours after. This was actually like 2 weeks because I didn't take data the next day. I took a break after it. But we had the people with the most growth were Aaron Erb, which everybody was freaking out about because of Noah. And then we had Brett, which was a fan favorite, Kevin McDevitt, Sam McKinney, who was a big fan favorite. And then the last one was Sam Nihad, but he was buying followers on and off all season, or has trends that make me lead me to think that he was buying followers. Then we have Joey, which again, this was like a 2-week period after the announcement. We had Daisy with 8,400 followers after the announcement, and then everyone else was around 1,000. So everyone else was Allison, Autumn, Carissa, Jen, Jessica, Kelsey, Lexi, Natalie, Sydney. They all gained between 1,000 to like 1,900. Zach's season, we had one contestant gain over 1,000 followers. That was Christina Mandrell. Clayton, we had 2. It was Lindsay Wyndham. Oh, little emojis on the screen here. Lindsay, and then Susie. I think it's because I'm using my iPhone for my camera. So it's like doing things on the screen. So Clayton's season, we had Lindsay Wyndham and then Susie, who gained around 1,000. Matt's season, we had a lot. The 2 with the most were Kit Keenan and Abigail, who gained over 2,000. Everybody else was under that with over 1,000. So it was Anna, Katie Thurston, Chelsea, Maggie, MJ, and Rachel Kirkconnell. And then Peter's season, we had a number. So the one who gained the most afterwards was Hannah Ann, who gained 7,300 in the first 24 hours. And then Maddie Pruitt gained 6,100. This was back in the days pre-pandemic. Instagram followers preseason, and their growth was like the biggest indicator of spoilers. It isn't so much anymore. And then McKenna gained 3,200. Sarah Coffin gained 2,800, but she had trends of buying during her season. Kelly Flanagan gained 2,500, and then everybody else was 1,000. So Alaya, Katrina, Peyton, Victoria F, and Victoria P. Colton had a bunch too, but the ones that are most interesting were Kaylin with 3,500, Cassie with 7,900, Demi with 2,100, Hannah G with 9,200, and Hannah Brown with 2,200. So those have been the trends in the past. for the contestants right after the release.
I think one of the biggest things I took from that was when you were going over Matt James' season. It's really funny to think, and I think most people, I don't know, if you're a diehard, you probably knew it off the top of your head, but it is so funny to think that Katie Thurston was on Matt James' season. Like, that's where we initially got Katie Thurston. I think a lot of people forget that. I mean, I probably, if you were to ask me before that, I'd been like, yeah, I know Katie was on Matt's, but it's just funny to think about because that seems, number one, it seems so far away. And we remember Katie for so much more than really Matt James' season because she finished 11th. We know her as the Bachelorette. We know her F-Boy Island. It's just so many other things we know her for than that. You know, we know her more. We probably know her more for 12 days of Messy than we do the fact that she was on Matt James' season.
She was really great at creating her own persona too after that season. So many contestants stay so rooted and stuck in the personalities that they were given on their first season. Even leads, when they go on to have their own season, yeah, she did a really great job, especially because she had such a strong entrance with the showing up with the vibrator on night one.
Well, she was the
cold open.
Wasn't she a pretty big presence on TikTok before that season? Because I remember talking about her. I was like, this girl is like I think I introduced her as she's a TikTok influencer because she had a lot, at least back then, a lot of followers on TikTok for someone coming into the show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was under her Vent with Katie account. And also her season, not only was her limo entrance used throughout a lot of the promos for Matt's season, but the cold open on the first episode was her walking out with a vibrator. So that was the first thing we saw in Matt's season. It wasn't Matt, it was Katie.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of leads, let's go to Grant's numbers. I'm just curious. I haven't even looked at his numbers. Where are Grant's numbers? I don't know if you have them from the day, I'm sure you do, from the day he was announced back in August. I believe it was August 13th or 17th versus where he's at now and comparing him to other leads. I'm guessing he's probably on the lower end.
Yeah. So before he was announced, it was at the Men Tell All, or no, it was before the Men Tell All. You said it was August.
It was right after his, the night he got eliminated. Yeah. Okay. So that was
episode 6, just before Hometowns.
Yeah. The date was, I sent you the date yesterday, so I'm scrolling back on our crap.
Yeah, no, it was just before Hometowns. I remember now. I have it pulled up here. I can confidently say Grant had the least amount of followers when he was chosen out of any lead. So before he was eliminated and before he was announced, he had 7,951 followers. It's less than 10K.
Yeah,
and to give you an idea, people who had more followers than him at that point in the season, so 7,900, we had Aaron Erb, Austin, Brett, who was eliminated night 1, had more followers. Somebody who had about the same number of followers as Grant was Brian Otts. I don't even remember him.
By the way, Brian Otts, he's the one that took the Instagram video of Devin on New Year's Eve with the sign during the bottle service that said "Jen ain't it." That was Brian Otts' video. So just know that that's
trash
who Brian
recognizes
Otts is.
Trash.
Yeah, that's who hangs out with Devin.
I said trash recognizes trash because I remembered something about him, but I'm not going to bring that up on here. Then we had obviously Devin Strader, who had more followers. We had Jonathan had more followers.
August 13th was when Grant was announced.
It was the day after the elimination. I can see it right in his data. Marcus had more followers. Sam McKinney had 33,000 followers. We're not going to talk about Sam Nihad because he has a ton of odd trends. Spencer Connolly had more followers. And Tomas had close to the same number of followers. So those were all the contestants that had more followers than him when he was announced. The next day when he was announced, I think he was announced in the afternoon. So I take all my data at 8 p.m. Eastern ever since Matt James season. And then in Colton's season, I took it within a 2-hour range of that. So 24 hours after Grant's episode where he was eliminated, he was at 21,000 followers. And then a week later, he was at 36,000 followers.
I mean, look, it doesn't mean you have to choose somebody. People are going to be like, what does it matter about followers? It's just the best choice. But it just goes to what we kind of talked about earlier and what you said earlier. It helps a lot to choose somebody who does have a following, because it just gets more people with eyeballs choosing. I'm not saying Grant's a bad choice. I'm not saying the season's going to suck. I'm just saying, when you announce your Bachelor and he's got 9,700 followers on Instagram, it's just
7,900.
7,000. It's just, it's not doing you any favors. So you're literally like starting behind the 8 ball when you do that, you know?
Well, the reason why they have followers, and the reason why I track followers, right? Because I occasionally get the like rogue person who finds my page and posts, why do followers even matter? Why does the growth even matter? Their social media growth is a direct, it's a metric. It's the only metric out there that we can really quantify of how much is this person liked by the audience, you know? And it also is a big correlation of the screen time versus social media growth. If they're getting a lot of screen time and not gaining a lot of followers, it's typically because they're a villain, they're not liked, or they're a person of color, or some combination of those. And the issue here is that Grant, he was behind most of the cast, and he's already behind because he's not white. So like he has a lot of factors already working against him, in addition to the fact that he didn't get any screen time. They didn't build him up. So the audience didn't really care about him. And it wasn't because he's not a great person. Like it had nothing to do with his personality, which I have thoughts on, you know, some of the things that he's said in the past, but you know, they just didn't build him up. So you can do that with white contestants, but you can't do that with non-white contestants with this franchise, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it does. It all goes back to what we first talked about when it comes to this. If you want to cast your Bachelor who's got 7,000 followers, that's fine. But then you got to promote the shit out of him, and you got to have him everywhere. And the way they did it that night, right after he gets eliminated from Jen's season, it goes on the Bachelor Instagram page, and that's it. He's not on GMA. He's not on Kimmel. It was such a low-key announcement. That's just not good enough.
Or connected to a really powerful storyline. So we have a lot of examples of that. I have this data, by the way, on how many followers each lead had when their cast was announced. But think about like Jen going on Dancing with the Stars. She went in with a really powerful storyline, was partnered with Sasha, who is a arguably attractive single pro on Dancing with the Stars. And they built up that storyline, whether or not they're actually together. I hope she's having a great time. I wish the best for her after she was royally effed over by this franchise. But also think Matt James, right? Matt James is the best example of how to do this show right with casting. He didn't have a season before going on the show. On the flip side, he was chosen when he was pulled out from Claire's season. And then Claire kind of tried to F him over before that with what he was doing on social media with Tyler Cameron. But Matt James went in as the first Black Bachelor, but he already had a big following in a buy-in because he was best friends with Tyler Cameron, who is to this day the most successful male from this franchise on social media. Everyone was obsessed with Tyler Cameron's storyline, and Matt James was his bestie. So everybody loved him already. And also, like, Matt James is a Greek god. I got to meet this guy at Dancing with the Stars this last season in person, and tell you, like, I already thought he was attractive online, but when you see this man in real life, you're like, God has favorites, unfortunately. Like it's truly unreal in real life that, like, you know, the storyline attractive, but he's also a person of color, which is working against him. But they did that right with the storyline and with pushing the, you know, all the advertising around the show and his narrative. Like they did it really well. They're really failing Grant right now. But as far as social media followers, on the day that casts were announced officially, we got the cast photos. Grant had 84,000. Jen had 1,800, or sorry, I'm tired, y'all. 185,000. Joey had 173,000. So Joey had less followers when his cast was announced than Jen, which I think is very interesting. Zach was the one with the lowest following. Zach had 65,000. Clayton had about 110,000. Matt James had 473,000 followers. Peter had 1.3 million, and Colton had 883,000.
So what'd you say, Matt? What'd you say Grant is at right now? Or when it was?
84,000.
So the lowest, I guess, is Zach. In the history of the announcement being made is Zach, and he had 65. Okay.
Which also made sense with Zach. He came off of a season where there were two leads final 7, not final 4 like we typically do. Very little screen time, very little buy-in, and people really didn't want him. They didn't find him the most attractive guy in the cast. He ended up being a great lead, and they're still together, and he's a really great guy, but he had a lot of factors working against him.
You mentioned Jen and all that, and I'm curious, I'm sure you have the numbers here in regards to Jen. Start of Bachelorette to end of Bachelorette, start of Dance with the Stars to end of Dance with the Stars. I'm wondering which got her more of a bump in her followers. I'm guessing it's Bachelorette just because she was on it longer and she was involved in it.
Yeah,
longer.
So I'm going to break it down into 3 sections, actually. Episode 1 of Bachelorette to the day of the finale. So before we saw the shit show, that was the finale. And then finale to post-finale growth, so like about 5 days after. And then Dancing with the Stars, episode 1 to episode 2. So 3 sections in there, okay?
Yeah.
From episode 1 to the evening of her finale, just before it aired, she gained 81,000 followers on Instagram.
I'm guessing most of those were probably finale night. Probably more than half of those 80,000 were.
No, this was just before the premiere started to air. So literally 5 minutes before. On Eastern time zone.
Okay, so first episode till the finale night, once the finale was done airing, right? You said 85,000 she gained?
Just before the finale aired. 5 minutes before the finale aired. Between episode 1 and 5 minutes before the finale.
5 minutes before the finale aired. Got it. Okay.
She gained, it was about 82,000 followers.
82,000. Okay.
Now, from the night of the finale, 5 minutes before, until 5 days post-finale, okay, she gained 147,000 or 148,000 followers.
Yeah. So over a course of basically 8 weeks, she gained 85,000, and in 5 days, she gained that 100 and what'd you say? 40?
148,000.
148. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge bump because she was named, or she was, because of one, the story with Devin, she was now a sympathetic figure. And then 2, we find out she's going on Dance with the Stars during those 5 days. And then what are the Dance with the Stars numbers?
So from episode 1 of Dancing with the Stars until the finale, she gained 106,000 followers on Instagram. Now, what I find very interesting is the TikTok data, because she is a very active TikTok content creator. And so much of the success of Dancing with the Stars this season had to do with TikTok, and most of the buzz around Jen came from TikTok. So if you're a person listening that does not use TikTok, you probably don't know that there were like constant videos being made around, is Sasha and Jen a couple? Are they not? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody was watching her Day with Her Lives, seeing that on the corner of the video, she had her hand in his lap in the car, like stuff like that. So from episode 1 to 5 minutes before the finale on TikTok for Bachelorette. So when Jen was on the Bachelorette as the lead, she only gained, it was a great number. She gained 37,000 followers on TikTok during her season of the Bachelorette. On Dancing with the Stars, from episode 1 to the finale, she gained 182,000 followers on TikTok, and so many of her videos were going viral. On TikTok, it's this balance, right? It's a balance in terms of like success with like how much you can charge companies and everything with social media and ads and stuff like that. It's a balance between how many followers you have, but also how many of your videos go viral. And that's also starting to bleed into Instagram, but TikTok with the algorithm and how that app works, it's more about both.
Is there a number that's considered going viral? Is it 1 million? Is it 500,000? Is it more about engagement? I know what videos are viral, but is there a minimum number where you can say, okay, I would consider that a viral video, whether it's Instagram or TikTok? 500,000, million?
It depends on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to just general people who use TikTok, I think the general consensus would be over a million views. But when it comes to the advertising world, that term is used more loosely compared to how many followers they have, right? So if you're a micro content creator where you have under 10,000 followers, but most of your videos are getting like 100,000 to 500,000 views, like often, that you have a lot of content doing really well and being, it's successful content. So that's one of the things, like looking at the women on this season, of Grant's season and looking at their TikToks, a number of them have like 10, 20,000 followers, But when I went to go look at their page and I sorted their videos, they just had like 2 videos back in 2020 go viral, and everything else since then has been under 1,000 views. So like, you know, it's all about how many followers you have, all of your videos, how often are they going viral, how many videos are you making, how much engagement do those videos make. But that's more the advertising side of things and marketing and partnering with those influencers. Some people don't care about that, like me. I don't do any ads on my page, so I don't care about my content going viral. I care about giving good content to my audience and trying to do it as ethically as I possibly can. So yeah, it depends on each content creator and their audience size, in short.
Well, you mentioned Grant's Women and TikTok. One name that you brought up from earlier, I think she has the most on TikTok. Alicia, you said, and you wanted to say that you have some thoughts on her TikTok content. I haven't looked at any of her stuff. So what is Alicia's deal on TikTok?
Okay, so I have found now 17 women's TikToks. So doing really well. They're much harder to find than Instagram, unfortunately. But we don't have any content creators like Daisy last season. And I have my personal thoughts on Daisy, but when it comes to the show, Daisy was a big reason why the show was successful with her daily content. And she had been making daily content for like a year or 2 before she went on the show. So by the time the show started to air, she knew a really good formula that was working with her content creation and had a really good story as well. But talking about the accounts, so we have Alicia. She's the one that was Miss California 2020. She has, I'm trying to pull it up here right now. So sorry. Thought I had all of this ready. Ooh.
I think you had it.
Yeah, 24,000 followers. There she is. So she had a few virals that blew up back in 2020, and she really hasn't had much else since then. I looked at her page. She has like a couple hundred views per video. Alexi, I think, is one of the ones that I'm more excited for. She's posted a lot already, and it's doing fairly well for the content that she makes. We have Bailey, who she's one of our people of color contestants. I highlight that because number one, she's a social media manager. That's her job title. It's also in her bio on Instagram. So she knows how to make content and how to manage it for other people. She's had a lot of content do well on TikTok, but because she's a person of color, just across TikTok in general, it doesn't matter, reality TV, non-reality TV, if you are a woman of color, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard as a white content creator to gain followers. So her follower count right now is at 17,000, but I was looking at her content. It's really good. It's really well edited, and the engagement rates are looking really good for it. Next, we have Chloe. So she's posted just a few videos, and also she doesn't have a large Instagram following. So she's a model, and people might remember she's like slightly ginger, but more on the blonde side of things. And turns out, so her bio says that she's a curve model. So it seems like she's going to be leaning, based on her bio, it seems like she's going to be leaning into that content, which has the potential to create a really powerful community. I follow a few different curve models. It's been really great for my mental health, just with some personal struggles that I have. And I'm really excited to see her content. And if she's going to start to post more, she's also stunning. Then we have Christina. So Christina's going to regret her username. She wrote, it's Christina Kelly, but with 3 L's for Kelly. People aren't going to be able to find her, but very interesting. I think she's the villain this season, and I want to know if I'm right or wrong. Or have you shared who the villain is yet? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know who it is, but she makes motivational content, that kind where it's like either a video of you like sitting on a bus, staring out the window with text over you, or photos with like text about it. So here have been her content. Her content that's blown up has been like one of her videos was on, she has like a toxic, the title said toxic mom, and it was all about going like no contact with your mother, and it had 4 million views. But again, like on the motivational side of things, her second most viral video was posted May of 2023. So this is before she went on the show. And the text over, it was like her sitting like on a bus or something like that, or like a train. It basically said she doesn't care if she's the villain in somebody's story. I'm a good person with a good heart. If I'm your villain, you probably deserved that shit. So she's had 4 viral videos, and she has like 12,000 followers. So that's kind of the content that seems like we'll get from her on there.
Do you want an answer to your question?
Yes. Is she the villain?
she's irrelevant to the season. She's gone night one.
Interesting. I feel like they cast her because they went to go look at her page and they were like, oh, this girl's going to be happy to be our villain.
Yeah, she's gone night one. I don't even know if she has any drama on night one, but I know she's gone night one. So,
and I've gotten some DMs from people who aren't happy about some of her content on Instagram, of her posting her getting cornrows. For context, if people don't know who she is and what she looks like, she's white blonde. So that's just some stuff I've gotten about her, but I guess she doesn't make it far, so it doesn't matter. One that I find interesting is Radhika, I think is how you say her name. So she has 2 accounts. One is her personal account, and the other one is with her sister. The account name is called sisters.in_law. And then in the bio, it basically says something like Esquire. So it seems like they're both lawyers, but it's a brand new account and they only have 2 videos with 5 followers. And all the 2 videos that they've posted, it's basically sisters just dissing on each other. It has nothing to do with law. So I might be wrong, but it seems like they're going to try to create content around that. Does she make it far, or is she relevant this season?
No, she's gone first night, I believe. Right. Maybe it's either first or maybe second episode. I don't have my notes in front of me, but she's not a name that, put it this way, she doesn't make Travel. Travel starts episode 4. They do 3 episodes in LA and they're down to 10 women by episode 4. What
about Alexi?
Yeah, she's first impression Rose.
Oh, great. Cause she makes a lot of really good content. I'm like trying to look through these contestants, and Bailey too. Is she relevant this season? I'm so sorry. You can also tell me this offline if you prefer.
No, this stuff is out there, or at least I've talked about it.
Okay.
Alexi. Yeah. What they did was for this season, I don't even want to call it a twist. It's just whoever, I guess it was announced to the women the first night in the mansion, whoever gets the first impression rose also gets the first one-on-one of the season. So Alexi gets both. It's not because he chose to also give it to her. It was known that if you get the first impression rose, you're getting the first one-on-one of the season. So
Alexi, I really like that. I love that. Because so far, especially on I'm glad that I wonder if they were looking at my data. I know the producers do because they all follow me, but the data for the Bachelor specifically, not the Bachelorette, the women who get the first impression rose rarely make it to hometowns. They all get eliminated like the week before hometowns or the week just before. Like, you remember Abigail's storyline?
We keep that streak alive this season.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. No, that's no, but it just kept with what's happened in the past. It doesn't change. I don't know, what happens to her in terms of later on. Did he sour on her? Did something happen? I don't know, but we know that she's not in the final 4. But yeah, she does get the first impression rose and the first date of the season. But
I think the other piece of data that I was thinking about was how they also just never end up getting a one-on-one date. Like, they get eliminated and they never get a one-on-one date.
It happens a lot for sure. Yeah, happens a lot for sure. Olivia Caridi being a prime example that pops into my head. She got stuck on a 2-on-1 date and they got left on an island on Ben's season. And Abigail never got a 1-on-1. There was definitely others. But yeah, that's been like the curse. I think Hannah Ann on Peter's season was the only one. And now, can we even consider her a winner? I believe she's the only person, if I'm not mistaken, I think Hannah Ann's the only person who ever got the first impression rose that ended up, quote unquote, winning. On The Bachelor. And then The Bachelorette is the complete opposite. If you get the first impression rose, it was like 5 out of 7 years that person ended up being the winner. And it showed that the women who are Bachelorette had a better intuition on night 1 than the men do. But yeah, it's just kind of weird how that's worked out. It's not like you said, they usually don't even get to the final 4 first impression rose for the men. And yet for the women, not only do they get far, they usually end up winning. So
yeah.
It
feels like they tried to change the format to try to make it better.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we'll give her the first date, and then, like I said, I don't know how Alexi's journey goes. I just know where she finishes, and it's not in the final 4. So
yeah, if I could put out a plea to like people who watch this show, is like, don't come after contestants for trying to make content on TikTok. Like, stop harping on them because we need it. We like. people know this if they've been following me for a while. I have my pop culture data account. There's no show that I have loved as much and for as long as The Bachelor and Dancing with the Stars. Like, those have been my favorite shows of all time consistently. And we want this show to stay alive. And like, they've been trying to make a lot of changes, especially if you've been here with the Bachelor Diversity campaign. We can see that they're trying to make changes, and they're giving more screen time to people of color. And they're now starting to cast some body diversity, and like, they're trying to make these changes. So like, we got to help the show, guys. Stop harping on them on trying to make TikTok content. And also on that topic, I'm surprised that Disney is not like lobbying at Mar-a-Lago with like Meta and Mark Zuckerberg to try to stop this TikTok ban, because the whole reason Dancing with the Stars has gotten successful is because of TikTok, is because of Riley. Like, that is the sole reason that this show has started to take off again. And same thing with The Bachelor with Joey's season. It's TikTok. Like, we need this app to stay alive for these TV shows, because there's nothing goes viral on Instagram anymore. Like, the algorithm sucks there, and it's about to become a 10 times more toxic environment now that Meta has announced that they're going to cut back on pulling misinformation down, pulling down harmful content, pulling down things that violate their content policies. Like, every single death threat that I've gotten in my DMs, which, like, I don't talk about this often, I don't want to fuel that side of things, but like, every single death threat I've gotten, DMs with like luckily my old addresses, my family's old addresses, because I'm smart about what I do online. Like, all of those DMs that I've reported have all come back as like, this doesn't violate our community guidelines. So the fact that it's about to get 10 times more toxic, like, it's not going to help this show go viral. Like, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen to this franchise, especially with Bachelor in Paradise this summer. Without TikTok, that show's not going to be successful, because they're going to have contestants on the show that already have a large following on TikTok. So we need that to watch the show, for people to remember to tune in, to care about the show.
Well, we talk about that, and we talk about the things the show needs to do to get better. And then we find out Grant's season isn't starting until January 27th, and they're already at hometowns by episode 6. So this is the shortest season in God knows how long. We're looking at 9 episodes. I mean, he has hometowns. They're in LA for 3 episodes. Then they go overseas for 2. And then they're at hometowns in episode 6. So if you just take the natural progression of the show, if you have hometowns in episode 6, that means in episode 7, you're going to be down to 3 women. And then in episode 8, which would essentially be your Women Tell All. And then episode 9, you're down to your 2. So it looks like we're getting 9 episodes this season, which is the lowest they've ever had, probably since the early days of the show, like early 2000s.
Wait, how many episodes are going to be pre-hometowns? Because I have data on that pulled up right in front of me.
5.
Okay, so Charity
there's
season.
Usually 7.
Charity season had 5 episodes pre-hometowns. Okay, so that was
that's Bachelorette.
Season.
Yeah, yes. That's Bachelorette. We've never
Bachelor
had a with 5.
Yeah, as far as Bachelor, it's all been 7 or 8, going back to Brad Womack's second season. The last time we had 5 pre-hometown episodes was Jake Pavelka's season. Yeah, and Jason and Matt Grant.
Yeah, I consider Brad 2.0 as the start of where any data from the show should begin, because pre that just wasn't. It was a popular show. It was a popular show, and there was obviously less television, no streaming back then. So the numbers were probably better ratings wise, but for the fan base, I say it started and reignited on Brad Womack 2.0, because we got an ending that we had never seen before, where the guy at the end just said, "Yeah, I'm not choosing either of you." And
no,
that
2.0.
2.0 is obviously Emily. So yeah. So, and after Brad 2.0 was the next season was Jason, right? Believe.
No, so it went Jason, Jake, and then Brad 2.0. So, but it was
Jason was after Brad 1.0. Okay, yeah.
It was Brad 2.0 that we started to see the version of the show that we see now. So like the number of weeks that they date, the number of weeks pre-hometowns, the hometowns followed by overnights, but yeah, all that.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've always said Jason was the season that put the show back on the map. They had a bunch of lulls before that. But format-wise, Brad 2.0 makes sense. But
and then Jake was a mess, and then Brad was awesome, and then Ben Flash next season was a mess, glorious mess.
I think people need to understand, it's not because they don't like Grant, and that's why they're only giving him 9 episodes, and next season we're going to go back to 11. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the Bachelor format going forward, only because this all has to do with scheduling. This all has to do with the fact that ABC has the rights to the college football playoff, and when they went to 12 teams, that means they had to push back their national championship game. And I said it before I even knew when Grant's start date was. I said, look, guys, the college football national championship is January 20th. They can't start Grant's season before then. So the first Monday after the 20th is the 27th, and I guarantee that's when we're going to start it. But they're not also going to add on the back end and go into April to end the season, because then you're competing with college basketball national championship, which is usually the first Monday in April. So this is ending at the same time as it usually does, mid to late March, but it's starting 2 weeks later. That's why there's probably only going to be 9 episodes, and I think this is going to be it. Not it for the show, but it meaning this is going to be the format. You're not going to get your first Bachelor season, because for the longest time, it was always first Monday in January. A couple seasons ago, it went to, now it's in the second Monday. Now it cannot air. It cannot start airing, because you're not going to start it on January 13th, take a week off for the college football national championship, and then come back. You're not going to do that week 1 into the season. So Bachelor season is not going to start until the week after the college football national championship, which is now the third week of Monday in January. So we're going to get 9 episode seasons. They're just going to be shorter. It's just the way it is. And
something I wish that they would do is the episode before Hometowns. I wish that was a half an episode. And then the second half of that episode was the Men Tell All. And then we go into Hometowns overnight's finale.
Oh, okay. So you want Men Tell All before they even show the Hometowns?
Or just like a half episode somewhere. Like, we don't need a full episode for Men Tell All. We don't. And we've seen the last few seasons. It's getting
They haven't
worse.
done it, right? Well, they haven't. They'll end the hometown date episode in the first half hour and then go into Men Tell All. So it's only 90 minutes. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Still so much filler. And it has historically every single season since my Brad Womack is my point, where it's like, that's the new era of the show. The Men Tell All, the Women Tell All is historically the worst episode performing ratings wise all season. It's a dip. The season will go up towards the end, and then there's one episode that goes bloop, and that's always the Tell All episode.
And then it goes back up for the finale, because people want to tune in to see what happened at the end. But yeah, outside of Ben Flanick's Women Tell All, which is the only time in the history of the show they had one of the final 2 there, because they had to bring Courtney on because she was such a lightning rod that season. You just can't find many memorable ones. And the other thing is, you also got to remember, we bring this up every season, when you film that Tell All, we know now it's basically a precursor and an audition for Bachelor in Paradise. That's why you get night 1 and night 2 men and women speaking out, and you're like, who is this person? Well, you really can't chime into anything. You weren't there during the season. You got sent home in episode 1 or episode 2, but they gas up these contestants and tell them, literally, you ask any contestant who was a night 1 or night 2 elimination, did producers tell you, hey, we promise you paradise? Sometimes they followed through, sometimes they didn't. But that's why you hear night 1 and night 2 eliminations speak up on the Tell All show, because they want to make a name for themselves and they want people to remember them. Hell, even in their intro package on Paradise, they might even say, I was the one at the Tell All, and they'll go back and they show the Tell All clip. But essentially, you also got to remember, Grant's season, as we said, ended last week of October. So these women who will go back to film Grant's Women Tell All in end of February, it's been 4 months since they filmed. Does anybody really hold that much of a grudge 4 months later? Maybe some women do, but most of the time for the men, they're just over it. And to dredge up stuff from 4 months ago, you're begging, and it just seems contrived and forced. And that's why the episode is really never any good. And there's really no way to, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. There's really no way. So what can they do during the Tell All?
I have an idea. I have an idea. What they need to do, producers, if you're listening, clip this, Steve, for your stories.
Here,
producers, if you're listening.
Let me write down the timestamp on this. 53
minutes.
Yeah.
If producers are listening, the way to make the Tell All episodes actually dramatic is to let these women go on podcasts and do, like, we've seen this with other shows. When they let them go on podcasts throughout the season, then everybody's really excited for reunion episodes. We saw this with Love Island. Like, they were all going on podcasts before the reunion episode, and then that made it more exciting to see them duke it out at the reunion. And then letting them go on things like Call Her Daddy, which we're now seeing Bachelor's relevant enough again that it's being part of Call Her Daddy, which is a massive podcast. Let these women, the villains, the heroes, let them go onto these podcasts to drum up more interest for the show, but also so we can hear their thoughts after the show, because then we're going to want to see them duke it out more on the Tell All.
They do let them, but they let them go on Bachelor Happy Hour, and it's just a fluff piece.
Nobody
right?
listens to that. Nobody listens to Bachelor Happy Hour ratings wise.
You said it, not me.
It's not. I mean, you can't fight the data. I would love for more podcasts to do well on this franchise.
What's that noise? Okay.
Oh, is it me?
Yeah, that was something. Did you hear that in your headphones?
Yep. Amazon's delivering to my garage, which is right under me, but I'm going to lift up my my microphone so you can't hear it. Is that better?
Yeah. Is that your? No, now I hear it. Is that your? What's that noise? Is it your garage going up and down? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, because I'm using a Yeti mic, and because it's touching my desk, my garage is just below. So if anybody knows about MyQ, it's like this thing you can install in your garage for Amazon delivery into your garage. So they'll just come and deliver stuff in there.
Yeah, it was just a vibrating. It was just a vibrating noise I heard in my ear, and I was like, I didn't know where it was coming from. But
yeah, that's the only reason. That's the only way that I can see the Tell All episodes actually being exciting, because that's why they had Courtney on that episode. And I actually just looked at the ratings. So the demo went down for Courtney Robertson on Ben Flajnik's season. Flajnik, I think is how you say it.
Flajnik.
It went the Flajnik. It went down 0.1, but the viewership actually went up like 140,000 viewers, which it's pretty rare for viewer numbers to go up for the Tell All episode. They all it's all blips. But that's the thing. You need to drum up the drama and the interest and the buy-in into those storylines. And unfortunately, the villain storylines on the show are always just so overdone, and everybody's like, can you stop? This is so annoying that when it comes to the Tell All episode, everybody's just like, I don't care to watch them fight anymore. Like, this was so annoying.
So I see what you're saying. The problem then becomes exactly what we know, and that's toxic Bachelor Nation. If one of these girls goes on somebody's podcast during the show while it's airing and starts talking shit on the other girls, I think we know now that these contestants opening themselves up to harsh criticism and a lot of trolls. I mean, there's a difference between criticizing, hey, maybe you shouldn't act this way on the television show, versus you should die. And we know, I think everybody now is hypersensitive and hyper aware of, I don't want to ruffle feathers, and I don't want to call other girls bitches. I don't want to call anybody names. And I think that's why we're never going to get it. It's because they know the second they start doing that, toxic Bachelor Nation is going to jump down their throat. And
then build up other storylines. If we have besties, remember like Becca, Tilly, and JoJo on that season with them blow drying each other's extensions, have them go and Call Her Daddy together to talk about their friendship on the show. And then on the Tell All episode, they talk about their plans moving forward, invite one of them to go on Paradise, and then they'd be like, I won't go unless my bestie goes because we're a package. Like, there's so many other like storylines that they could build up that will make the audience excited that don't necessarily have to be negative fighting storylines. Like, we need buy-in, and we also need these contestants making content on TikTok. Like that, we need a combination of all these things to make it successful.
Yeah. And you never know what we're going to get with them, what they're going to allow. Sometimes it seems like they allow more things than others, but how many women in this show's history, how many contestants in this show's history have been on Call Her Daddy? 2? Is it Jen and Maria? Is that it?
No, we've had others. So I think Colton went on, Nick Viall, but Colton went on regarding his scandal. Nick Viall went on because of his podcast. I think that's it. And then,
maybe
Jen
Tyler.
Did
Tyler Cameron go on Call Her Daddy?
Mm-mm.
Did he ever be on? And even if he did,
he's been on some other big. He's been on some other big ones, but Call Her Daddy wasn't at the point of interviewing other people back when he was super popular. Call Her Daddy broke up, and then Alex Cooper became I'm going to interview other people podcast instead of two girls talking about their escapades podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll leave it at that.
That podcast. Yeah. That podcast has done a complete 180 from what it used to be. It used to be,
two women
talking about, because it was, like you said, it was two women that, as far as I know, her and Sophia Franklin did not do interviews when it was the two of them. It was just two girls talking about their sex and dating escapades in New York City, right?
Yeah, I don't. And if they did interviews, it wasn't like a common
wasn't like
thing.
What she's doing.
I didn't listen back then, though.
Yeah, and now we know it's Alex Cooper getting a lot of big names in the entertainment world, the podcast world. Hell, she got Kamala Harris on. She dove into the political side. So yeah, it's different. But we also know it's the number one. If I'm not mistaken, it's the number one female hosted podcast out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's the number 2 podcast in the United States and globally behind Joe Rogan. It's the number 1 woman-led podcast.
Although is Kylie Kelsey, I keep hearing numbers about Kylie Kelsey now having the most listened to podcast out there. I don't know if that's true or not.
She's only a few episodes in, but it's performing really well. Every time it drops, it gets higher on the ratings list than Joe Rogan, but it's also different quantity, right? Her goal, I listened to the first few episodes, that her goal is to only put out, I think, 25-minute episodes to make it easy for moms to listen to, don't have too much time, and she doesn't want them to feel left out. And it's 1 episode a week. I think Joe Rogan does a bunch.
Does she do interviews, or is she just talking mom stuff for 25 minutes?
So it's half her talking and then half her interviewing somebody. So the first episode, it was Allison Kutch, who her husband was in the NFL. He's just not on a team right now, and they create really good content. I love her as a content creator. She's had really great guests on so far. I love Kylie Kelsey. And
it's only 25 minutes, and she does an interview, half interview and half regular?
I think it's like 25, 35. It's under 45 minutes, but it's definitely not an hour. And she intentionally talked about in the first episode that she wanted to keep it short, specifically as a mom. Like, it's tough to feel like you're missing out on content.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I just hear that she's doing really well. And I hear the numbers about, oh my God, she's surpassed Joe Rogan as the most popular podcast in America. I'm like, gee, she literally just started.
I think moving forward, though, Alex Cooper, we're going to start seeing her I think we're going to start to see it go down because I think she's getting into the phase of her life that she's realizing like the content creation hamster wheel is a lot, and she isn't going to be as relevant with, sex and going out and partying as she's getting older. So she's created a podcast network. So she's signing on tons of influencers and stuff and bringing them on to her podcast network. So what that does, if people are wondering, you get a portion of that person's podcast revenue to host them and to give them the name and get them their brand deals. She just launched Unwell Hydration, which unfortunately is through Nestle. If people don't know this, Nestle actively lobbies in Congress against paid or mandatory maternity leave for women after having pregnancy, because it will decrease the amount of money that they make off of formula, because when women have to go to work, they have to convert to formula. So unfortunately, I was really excited that Alex Cooper got Kamala Harris, and I think it was a really powerful episode to talk about women's rights, but unfortunately she signed with Nestle. She also has a patent pending for a vodka brand under Unwell Network. So it seems like she's trying to build up other businesses to possibly pull back.
Did she just bring in Grace O'Malley, the one who split from Brianna Chicken Fry? Okay. Yeah,
24 hours after. So Grace O'Malley went on Theo Vaughn's podcast.
Yeah, saw clips of that.
And apparently Alex Cooper's team reached out to her like 24 hours after this whole thing, and the deal was done a few days later. And she's getting paid way more than she was at Barstool. She said on, Portnoy came out after she went on Theo Vaughn's and said we were paying her, because on Theo Vaughn's podcast, Grace O'Malley said, my partner, she didn't mention Brianna by name, but we all knew who she was talking about. She's like, she was making way, way more than I was. And Portnoy came out and said, I'll just tell you what she was making. She was making $170 base to do her podcast. He didn't say what Brianna was making, but he also said Grace O'Malley, when she came to Barstool, nobody knew who she was. She was a nobody. Of course, Brianna's going to make more. Brianna was the name. She was the one that was the star of the show. Grace got paid $170, and then she built up her brand from there. People started knowing who Grace was because she was on this podcast. And then he said she was in the last year of a 3-year deal.
Grace was, and then obviously the falling out with Brianna happened, and she was allowed to go somewhere else, and now she's probably gonna make more.
Listen, I didn't care about any of these people before the draw. I didn't listen to their podcast. Couldn't have cared less about them. Brianna Chicken Fry was dating somebody that I was like, all right, that's your world. I'm not interested in it. Like, you do you, girl. But wow, Dave Portnoy, what a great boss. And also, I think people also need to remember 170. It sounds like a great salary, but it is not in New York City. That is not great money for New York City.
Yeah, and who knows what she's made. I'm guessing she went to Alex's network to make more than that. She's not going to take less than 170 for sure. Yeah. One thing about Call Her Daddy, when Maria went on Call Her Daddy, she had made some Instagram post that, and I don't know if it was just like, hey, they're friends now or whatever. I think everybody assumed that Maria was going to get a podcast because it just seemed like she was referencing it or she was joining it, but ever since Joey's season ended in March, ever since Joey's season ended in March, you got to kind of strike while the iron is hot. Maybe she's under contract and she's not allowed to do anything until this March, but what has Maria done since March? What is she doing?
She has hung out with Alex Cooper.
Yeah.
That's it. So she goes to tons of parties with Alex Cooper. What I thought was, because they took those professional photos with the Unwell merch, like the hoodies with the sweatpants.
Didn't she show up to one of her live shows, to like one of those live podcasts that she does? Yeah. And I was like, Maria's there. Okay.
I was convinced that they were going to announce it once she got off contract. So I personally, I'm wondering if they have extended her contract. I know they can extend leads contracts, but I don't know if they can extend contestant contracts.
Well, you got to also remember, contestant contracts are 1 year from the time your finale airs. So that would be this March. So maybe she can't start a podcast until this March. So that must be it. But
because from what I know from the contract, it's not that they can't do things. It's that they have to get approval for everything.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they're denying her until it's far enough past Jen's season. Because she was stirring the pot with some of her remarks with Jen. And
well, there's a reason. I mean, let's be honest. We don't know the true reason. And both of them were kind of coy when she went on Alex Cooper and then when Jen went on Alex Cooper. Let's face it. What Maria said on Alex Cooper's podcast pissed Jen off. I don't know. Jen's never going to say it pissed me off. I think we all know it did because of what she said and how she said it and the way she worded it. Wasn't the greatest wording in the world. And remember, these two were literally like besties. And before Jen was announced as the Bachelorette, these two were posting together. It was lovey-dovey captions here and there. And they've basically are not friends anymore. Clearly, they don't even acknowledge each other on social media anymore. So clearly it was because, remember, when Maria went on Call Her Daddy, Jen was off filming. She couldn't even respond to it until she got back. Then she went on Call Her Daddy and she's like, yeah, I heard about that. And, she was being very coy, but it's obvious she didn't like what Maria said and they're no longer obviously in touch. But then there's this thing now, if Maria's contract is up in March, that's fine. But you would think Maria would be one of the first people on the beach for Bachelor in Paradise if that's what she wants to do. I don't know. So that would set it back because if she started a podcast in March and then all of a sudden in June, she takes off 3 weeks. Oh, we know why she did. She went to go film Paradise. So I don't know, but they've also made concessions for people in the past when when Becca Kufrin went down to Paradise, they let her record a podcast down there. So who knows? They might bend over.
And also Paradise, each one of them negotiate their contracts separately. It's not like Bachelor where like, you're going to be on the season and here's your contract that everybody else gets the identical one of.
Yeah, no. I mean, the women on Grant's season, there's going to be a lot of them on Paradise. We don't know which ones yet, but when we watch the season, we'll be able to tell. They will garner the least amount. They'll be the ones that are in the least leverage in their negotiations, just because people don't know them as much. But Joey's women can probably ask for more. And then whoever the next Bachelorette is starts filming in March, her guys will also be on Paradise, and they'll be in that situation where the people down on the beach won't even know who these guys are because their season won't have aired yet, since it won't even start airing until July. And we know that Paradise films in June. So you're going to have that. They're probably in the least negotiable leverage situation, just because
I have a rebuttal.
So they are.
If any of Grant's women can turn up and create as much content right now before Paradise starts filming on TikTok, starting yesterday, you got to start now, then they will be able to negotiate a pretty strong package on the beach. They can negotiate early entrance. They will be able to negotiate that because they can be like, listen, look at all the views I'm getting. Look at all the content I'm going to make for you. They will be able to negotiate, but they have to start yesterday. And a few of them have. A few of them are already posting their cast photos. A few of them, their cast photo videos already have gotten like 30, 40,000 views.
And I'm really curious, having taken a year off. Obviously, we have 4 casts to choose from now. So you have a bigger pool to choose from for this season of Paradise. But number one, we know it's not going to be in the same location. That place got bought out. Sayulita got bought out, and they're done there. So they're going to have to find a new location. And number two, oh, Jesus, I totally blanked. What was the other thing? Just do they change up the format at all? Because everyone's kind of tired of, look, if you don't get in there in the first 2 or 3 drops of people coming in, you're probably not partnering up with somebody. And this whole thing of, hey, I'm entering week 5, and then Jesse Palmer says, you either have to stay together and go to an overnight or you got to break up. It's like, these people just met a day ago. Come on. And we know people talk beforehand. There's probably already people that have slid into Grant's women's DMs from Jen's season. I'm sure it's happened. However, I think they need to change up the format. In fact, I'd be shocked if they didn't. If they roll back the same exact thing, even though they have 4 casts to choose from, I just don't think it's going to be successful. You got to do something different with Paradise. You got to make it more, make it more challenging. Make there be challenges and money prizes where people have to like team up or something like that. Hanging out at a beach while people go on a date that is just, hey, go walk down the streets of Mexico and, break open a piñata or learn some salsa dance. Why they spend most of the time focusing on what the drama is back at the beach. I was like, that's not enough anymore. I think we need something different.
Or if they like a competition where one outcome is you win a lot of money. The other one is that you get like a guaranteed date with a person, but the person who takes the money prize is guaranteed another 2 rose ceremonies or something like that. So it incentivizes them to kind of take the villain route, but they know they won't be eliminated because of it right away. Or bringing in men and women in the same week. So it encourages more of a shakeup instead of like, well, it's just the women this week that are in charge and these are the only ones that are here. Like bring in bigger groups of both genders to kind of shake things up more each week. Or at the halfway point in the season, just bring in a second batch of people and then see what happens. Not just like men and women and men and women and boop, we're at the overnights. You have to sleep together or else you have to go home. Like,
yeah. Well, it's almost like, mix in some of, people love Bachelor Pad. I don't think they'll ever bring Bachelor Pad back just because I don't think you can top what happened in the 3rd season. So it's like they reached the ultimate peak. Even if someone did the same exact thing, it'd be like, okay, but we've already seen this. So I don't really think they'll ever bring back Bachelor Pad, but by incorporating game playing, challenges, money involvement, you're bringing a part of Bachelor Pad into Bachelor in Paradise and almost molding the two together. I'd be totally fine with that. They just cannot do what they've been doing for 9 seasons. They've got to mix it up somehow.
And the other thing that they need to do is they need to make it a more visually stimulating show. Like Love Island USA, their sets are bright. It's like, they're like not technically at the beach either. They're like a mile inland from the beach, but it's like pools, which are bright and blue. And then all of the set is like orange, red, or orange, pink, yellow, white, like cool, modern, trendy. And like, I'm glad that they're going to be using another beach because like they need to move on. They need to get a better set. They got to switch things up. They got to add a competition aspect. And I think Bachelor in Paradise would be so successful. I think it's too late for them to do this now because I'm sure they already have everybody scheduled. But if they could make a live aspect of the show, kind of like Love Island and Big Brother, where the audience has some type of participation, this is why Dancing with the Stars is partially so successful, is people will fight each other online. Like the arguments I see people get on comment sections on Reddit, fighting for the people that they think that need to make it to the finale or to the semifinals and stuff like that. That encourages audience buy-in. That gets people to tune in. So if they can have some type of audience participation, that's going to get people to buy into the show more.
Yeah, and the problem with that is I just don't see it happening. They've never done a live show. Now, you could maybe do an online live after show, but they're going to film the show in advance. They're just never going to film anything live in this franchise. They haven't for 48 seasons. I don't know why they would start now. But remember back in the day, they had the Bachelor in Paradise after show. That was live, where it was Chris Harrison in studio, and then they would bring in guests from that episode. And then Chris Harrison went and did Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then Sean Lowe and Michelle Collins hosted one season, and then another season somebody else hosted. I can't even remember who it was, but
got trash ratings.
I could see them just doing a live after show. Hell, Deal or No Deal Island, which premiered last night, has a live after show hosted by Boston Rob right now. Like, that show is in its second season, and they're doing a live after show because it got so much good buzz off of season 1. Maybe go back to the Bachelor in Paradise live after show. Cut the episode. I don't need 2 hours of Bachelor in Paradise also on Monday nights. That's way too much. That's maybe do a 90 minutes and then a 30-minute live after show where you go right into somebody in studio. At least it gets people engaged. You see them, because like I said, they're not going to do a live show. They just can't. They've never done anything where you're tuning in live except for the After the Final Rose, which is always the most entertaining episode of the season, but we're not voting. We're just getting live reactions to that. So yeah, a lot of good ideas. Suzana, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Your data is unmeasured in the Bachelor franchise. So go check her out at BachelorData, at Pop Culture Data as well. Suzana, thank you so much for coming on. And obviously we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.